Hi, my name is Neli Sikosana, and thank you so much for returning to watch my second YouTube video. And this video is going to look at life after matric. So we know that in a couple of days, the matriculants will be receiving their results, and some people may have a solid plan as to what they're going to be doing with their lives. They have crafted it out, they have received their acceptance letters to the universities. They may be, going into their family businesses, or rather, they may be wanting to work so that they can start making some form of money. Not everyone is that fortunate, right? There are some students who may have a vague idea, but there might be some circumstances that may hinder the plans that they have, or really their results are not what they need to be for the future that they envisioned for themselves. I was actually one of the latter students when I matriculated in 2010. Yes, so that's like 13. Oh, actually, it's 14 years ago now. Noting how it's 2024. So I matriculated in 2010, and I was one of the students who had no idea what life had in store for me. I wasn't sure where to go after matric and what my next life was going to be. I had goals, I had a vision as to how I saw myself, but I didn't have a clear plan as to what I was gonna do or the steps that I needed to take to become who I am today. But 13 years later, I am so thankful for everything that God has provided for me and my family, of course. And I want to talk to you today so you can feel assured that things will come together. To start off, I'll just give a little synopsis about my matric year or my high school career. So I went to a technical high school, and the reason I chose a technical high school is as a 13-year-old, I thought I wanted to go into forensics. And yes, that's because I watched a lot of Law and Order and Criminal Minds. But I really wanted to go into forensics, or I thought that was a career that I wanted to pursue. And I thought going to a technical high school would benefit me in the sense that I'm really going to be focusing on science related subjects, so that when I apply for university, my marks and the subjects that I had are really in line with the career that I wanted to go to. Fast forward a couple of years, towards the end of my grade 10, I really noted that I don't think forensics is something I really am passionate about and I would like to pursue as a career after I'm done with university. Or I really didn't think it's a life for me, a life that I wanted to live. I mean, I think watching Criminal Minds and Law and Order is fun and you see what people get to do, but a show was a show, and actually having to wake up every morning to go do that job, I think I figured out then that this is really not something that I want to do with the rest of my life. And then I had to think about, okay, what am I going to do now? Because I am in this technical high school. Do I really want to pursue another career that is in the technical space or the STEM field, whether it's actually becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer? I mean, one of the subjects that I had in grade 10 to 12 was electrical technology. So do I really want to do something within the engineering space? And I really thought, this is not going to be the life for me. At that time, I had fallen so much in love with English. I think reading, I mean, we had a group of friends, right, when I was in high school, where we really read religiously. We were passionate about books. I actually even kept like a journal of all the books I had read in a year. And I think one of the series that I liked, it was like Sullivan High, and I can't remember what the title of the books are, if it actually is Sullivan High, but I remember the content that was related to it. It was all like, it was like kids in high school having the best time of their lives. And I really fell in love with English. I fell in love with books. I fell in love with writing. I started journaling. I started writing a little bit of poetry here and there. And I thought, hey, maybe a career in something that's related with languages is what would really work for me. And we had a couple of our friends, and I think some of my friends also had decided whether it was like the school, we wanted to shift schools, or we really don't want to go to a technical high school anymore. So we decided to, go try and move or change high schools to a normal high school. We went to a couple of high schools that we had identified, and the feedback that we got was always you don't really have a grade 10 portfolio, right? So if you're gonna want to now maybe do like economics or accounting, you haven't done those subjects in grade 10, you don't have a portfolio. So we would just recommend that you stay in your high school, matriculate, and then when you're going into university, just make sure that you're gonna then apply for a career or apply for studies that's in line with the career that you wanted to do. So we had no choice. We stayed at the technical high school for another 2 years. And I think the one thing that I did, which wasn't smart, is I really stopped paying attention to my studies, right? From being in the top 10 academically, I was either number 11 or way down at the bottom now, not being recognized as one of those students who were performing academically. But the one subject I really paid a lot of attention to and I made sure that I was putting in the work was English. Fast forward to the end of matric, I get my certificate and I have passed with a diploma pass. And I think the one thing is, I hope people are clear about it now, but I think the one thing for me was, so I saw my certificate and it said diploma or higher certificate, but I didn't pay attention to it. I think at that time I was so steadfast in wanting to pursue studies in English literature and linguistics that it didn't matter to me. I mean, my English when I matriculated was 75, which I felt was good. So I was like, no, I'm going to be great. I'm going to apply for the universities and they're going to take me. Boy, was I wrong. And also the one university that I applied to, because that was the only university I wanted to go to, was UCT. So I applied to the University of Cape Town, got a response, and they definitely said, "You are rejected. We do not want you at our school." And I was like, no, this makes no sense. My English is good. And I mean, I applied for studies in English literature and linguistics. They shouldn't be looking at my maths. Me being me and being raised by a single mom who always enforced that you need to ask the questions, pick up the phone sometimes and ask for clarity. So I picked up the phone and called UCT and I was like, hey guys, the admissions office, what's going on? I applied, you guys responded, you're like, you're not gonna take me, what's going on? And I'm so thankful for the lady who was super patient with me and she explained, like, number one, your certificate, your matric certificate essentially states there that you can only apply and study for a diploma. You applied for a degree, we cannot take you. And then I said, okay, I understand, that's clear. And then I asked her, so what can I do to make sure that when I do apply next year for a degree in English literature and linguistics, that you guys will take me? And her response was, you need to up your maths and you need to up your physics. My results were at the 30s. I'll try and insert like a picture so you can see my matric certificate. And I remember getting off the phone, sitting down with my mom, and I knew one thing for sure: I am not going back to do maths and physics. Like, it's absolutely not gonna happen. I did it for 3 years. If it's something that I was really passionate about and I was so motivated to excel in, I would have done it. Like, nothing is gonna change within a year. And I sat down with my mom, and the one question my mom asked me was, okay, so you really want to study English literature and linguistics. What is it that you can do that's closer to that? But that's a diploma, right? And like I said earlier, I mean, the reason I wanted to study English lit and linguistics was because I had fallen in love with the English language. I had fallen in love with writing. I had fallen in love with reading. And I think the only thing that came to mind was journalism. Journalism is essentially writing. You're investigating, of course, but you're essentially going to be publishing. You're going to be putting pen to paper, or in this day, time and age, you're going to be putting your fingertips on the keyboard and you're going to be typing out what the story is. And I said to my mom, I think journalism is what I need to be studying because it is aligned with what I'm really passionate about, which is reading, which is writing. And she said, go on ahead, then find something that's related to that, or go find institutions that provide a diploma in journalism and pursue that. And one thing to note is that my mom is a single parent. She raised 3 girls all by herself. I'm the baby of the family. And as a result, financially, we really weren't styling, right? We were struggling. I actually say till this day, like, I grew up with a certain level of poverty. yes, I may not necessarily have been living in the rural areas or in the townships. My mom made a decision when she was a mother that, hey, and I've got 3 daughters, I would like to just expose my kids to a different sort of life. And as a result, she moved us from the townships to the suburbs. But even when we were living in the suburbs and she was working all by herself, my mom really struggled. We struggled, grew up eating umdogo, which is essentially porridge, for breakfast, lunch, supper. And I think maybe we'll go into my growing up and how I grew up and essentially my childhood in a different video. But I think what I'm trying to communicate here is that my mom did not have money for me to go study, whether I was going to go to university or whether I was going to be studying in college. So even with the conversation we were having, and she said, go find the institution. It's not like I was going to go find the institution that could give me, or rather that provided a diploma in journalism. And I was going to come back and, you know, we were going to be able to pay the fees or anything like that. So it was going to be another hurdle that we were going to have to overcome. When I did my research, I did find that Varsity College and Boston Media House were the institutions that provided a diploma in journalism qualification. However, with Boston Media House, it was for 3 years, and with Varsity College, it was for 2 years. As I said earlier as well, I didn't have money to pay for my fees. So already I knew that I needed to do the 2-year at Varsity College, because that essentially meant in 2 years I'm going to be out. I'm going to be studying for 2 years. I only need to raise money for 2 years, and then I'm going to be out and I'll start working and I'll start making money. Then we made the decision with my mom, we're going to go to Varsity College. I'm going to do my 2-year diploma in journalism qualification. But she didn't have any money, right? There's no money. Academically, I couldn't even apply for a scholarship or bursaries or anything like that because my marks weren't as good as somebody who probably had like 80s, 70s, right? I mean, I did have like a 30 plus for like maths and physical science, so nobody was going to take me seriously. So I then decided, hey, I need to raise money, right? So 2011, I need to raise money. And the one thing that I had done when I was younger was pageants. So I figured, hey, let me get into modeling. And I'll do a separate video on how I actually started my modeling career and my modeling journey and how I got signed with the agency that I'm currently with. But I then decided, let me get into modeling. I'm gonna make money there. So I started working as a model. I'd land jobs here and there. I was very happy. I was making some money. I was able to save. Also got into promotions. I was one of the ladies who, when you are shopping at like Incredible Connection, because Norton was actually one of the products I was promoting, and I was there to tell you about Norton and how you need security for your laptop. I was also sometimes at like a game and I would be promoting like Oral-B or a Discam. And essentially, I think for the 2 years after matric, which was 2011, 2012, I made sure to work as much as I can. And you know, one of the other great things that happened, my eldest sister, she was going to get married. Traditionally, upatala ilobola, and I'm so thankful till this day, because my mom, when she received the lobola money, essentially she told me, okay, we have enough for you to go pay for your registration. We don't know what's gonna come out of that or what's going to be the next step, but I can see that you are landing some jobs in the modeling space and you're making some money from promotions. So, and I'm, like my mom always says, God will provide. You know, my mom is the love of my life. Let's just say that. It's like my mom is the love of my life, and she, you know, she made that decision, and I know she could have wanted to use that money for other necessities, but she made that decision. So mommy and I went to Varsity College in Sandton and we registered for my 2-year diploma in journalism. Till this day, we laugh about how the whole experience was, right? I mean, we got there and they told us, okay, this is the courses you're going to be doing for the 2 years, the modules rather, and this is how much it was going to cost. And I think it was going to be about 56,000 Rand. And they didn't even ask who is going to be paying for this, right? They didn't ask, do you have a pay slip? Do you work or anything like that? They were like, okay, this is how much you're going to pay for the first year. Can you afford it? Yay. Pay the registration. And we paid the registration. And yeah. So after mommy and I paid for my registration to study towards my diploma in journalism, I started my qualification in 2013. That was also an experience. And I think because at that time I had already set it in my mind that, okay, for anything and everything that I need to do, I need to work hard for. Oh, and there's also one thing that I forgot to mention as I was telling you my story. So when the realization hit that, okay, there's no money for me financially that my mom had put aside that was going to pay for my studies. I mean, where was she going to find the money to put aside? But anyway, I did, as a teenager, I was throwing little tantrums here and there. And, I would talk to my mom and be like, but why didn't you save money for me to study? What am I going to do with my life? And of course, when you're young, also, your friends are going to universities. They're talking about how they're going to UCT, they're going to UP, UJ, they're going to VETS. And here I am. I don't know where I'm going. I don't even know where I'm going to be working. If I'm going to be working, if I'm going to be studying, how will I be funding my fees? And I remember I would, have those conversations with my mom. Technically, I'd be a complainer, right? I'd be like a little baby there crying, oh, mom, why don't you? And I remember my sister, Utuli, she sat me down in the one time and she said, how long are you going to complain that, oh, mama didn't save money for you to study? How long are you going to do that, right? Because that's the reality. There is no money for you to go study. There was no money for me to go study, right? But I have made something of myself. What are you going to do? And I remember I didn't pay attention when she said that during that time, but years later it became this tune ringing in my head constantly. And I was always like, truly right, like I'm going to complain while I'm 18, 19. I'm going to complain when I'm in my 20s. I'm going to complain in my 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm going to be an 80-year-old complaining about how my mom didn't save money for me to go study. So I knew then that I needed to do what needed to be done to make my life a reality. Any goals that I had for myself, the visions that I had for my life, I was the one that was responsible for making it a reality. I couldn't look to my mom anymore. Of course, she was there to support me, but really, she had done all she could. And I think the one thing I want to say is sometimes, especially when we're younger and we're teenagers, sometimes we do feel like our parents could have done more, but sometimes our parents couldn't have. Like, what they did is what they were capable of doing. It's all that they could do, and they really tried. And I'm so thankful to my mom for everything and anything that she has done for me. So I started my qualification and I became so intentional about succeeding academically because I saw how when I didn't excel academically, it could really close off some doors that I wanted to get through. So I knew, one, it was something that I'm really passionate about. It's journalism. I'm going to be getting to write. I'm going to be getting to read. It's really something I'm interested in and I can put my all in, and that's exactly what I did. I excelled academically. When I graduated with distinction. And when we were doing our second year, one of the assessments that we need to do in order for us to graduate was we had to compile a school newspaper or a magazine. We opted for a magazine that we titled #trending. I'll probably find some images or paste some images so you can see that too. I was the editor-in-chief of the magazine, so everybody in the class was either the journalist, the sub-editor, copywriter, photographer, we all had a part to play. One friend of mine had given me a book titled Your First Year of Work by Sheila Foster. Thank you, Dan. He gave me that book as a present. I mean, I was in my last year of my qualification, which meant the next year I was really going to now go into the world of work and try to find a job within the journalism space, whether as a writer, a reporter, anything of that sort. And I then, reached out. I read the book. I loved it so much. I then decided to reach out to the author, Sheila Foster, so that I could interview her for the magazine. And that was going to be our main story for the magazine. A few weeks later, after I did interview Sheila Foster for our magazine, she reached out to me to let me know that a friend of hers, who was an editor of a magazine called Business Class, that was part of the Times Media Group magazine, was essentially looking for an editorial assistant. She had put my name forward to him and she wanted to let me know, and she was also giving me his contact because he was going to reach out to me. So it was the first time that I had to prepare for like a formal corporate job interview, and I was so excited. I was super nervous as well, but it was also very motivating for me because it was a job within the industry, or rather the studies I was doing. I mean, I studied journalism and I was going to get to be an editorial assistant. I went for the interview with Charles Buffett, an amazing man, and he told me that he was looking for an editorial assistant because his current editorial assistant had moved on to more opportunities within the organization, and there was a vacancy. He had had a conversation with Sheila about me, and she had expressed that I would be a perfect candidate. Super excited. He said, "When can you start?" I was like, "Well, I have like 2, 3 exams that I need to wrap up for the year, and then I can start." And he said, "Sure. Once you're done with your exams, come and we'll start off." Working for Times Media Group at Business Class Magazine as an editorial assistant was the best time of my life. This was my real first corporate job. I really had my little pencil skirt. I remember my sister, the eldest one, Ukanye, and I went shopping, and we got a pencil skirt, we got a cute little top, and I'll try and find some pictures that I can paste so you guys can see. But I was really having a wonderful time. And I think one of the other great things about that is, I mean, the publication itself was targeting high net worth individuals, high LSM, because of the advertisers we had as well. We had, like your BMWs, we had your Cartiers, we had your Mont Blancs, your Dior. And I remember the one time Charles came to me and he said to me, "Would you like to go to Mauritius?" So I was like, "What do you mean? Do I want to go to Mauritius?" "Absolutely, yes. But what is this about?" And he then let me know that Mont Blanc and Lux Resorts were coming together and they were doing a press trip for journalists within the lifestyle space and working for magazines like Wanted and Business Class. And they were going to take a couple of our reporters or journalists or editors to Mauritius for a couple of days, and we were going to essentially enjoy. He was having a baby, so he didn't want to leave his wife, and he said, "Would you be keen on going?" I said, "Absolutely yes." I was super excited, absolutely loved it. Told my mom. My mom was super excited for me. And then got to go on the trip, went to Mauritius. So I also got to travel where I didn't have to fund the traveling because of the job that I did. I got to experience a wonderful trip. I met wonderful people who I follow socially and I have their contacts. I got to meet Kate, I got to meet Diddy. It was the best thing ever. And I remember, I mean, also, it wasn't like you're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we had to write a story about Mont Blanc. And I'll find, because I remember I kept a number of the Business Class publications. I just need to find them in the house. And then I'll insert the story that, the article that I did. It was the best thing ever. And I am so thankful for that experience, right? So this is about 5 years after matric, things that I hadn't even planned for. I think for me, when I matriculated, I think the biggest thing was I just want to make sure that financially I'm going to be okay. But God gave me way more than that. God gave me experiences that enriched me. God connected me with people who were, my advocates, people who were praising me, people who put me forward for opportunities. I was in this job because all I did was read a book that a friend had gifted me and I interviewed the writer. And here I am in Mauritius doing, having a great time, essentially. And I think one of the other major things that I was so thankful for, and I remember vividly during that trip in Mauritius, because I was still modeling at the time, and I think I still model today, not as much because of the work that I do now. But I remember that I had landed a couple of modeling jobs, and I think the money that I was gonna make was gonna be quite a big sum. And I remember when I was in Mauritius, getting the payment notification of the job. I think one of the jobs that I had done was for Head and Shoulders, and it was in like the six figures. And I remember my fees. I mean, I had to pay. I couldn't finish paying off my first year, but they were, the university was like, sure, you can come back on. But I remember, I think I owed the university between like 100K or like 99,000 rand. And when that six-figure amount hit my bank account, I felt so relieved because I knew that I could pay my fees. Like I could clear it off. I didn't have to now pay every month, but I could actually pay it off and settle, which then also meant that I could graduate the next year. And of course, I graduated the next year. My mom was there, my sisters were there. We had a wonderful time, took photos. But I also knew then that I didn't want my journey with academia to end there. I then decided to do a certificate in marketing through Wits Plus. And the reason I did that is because with End Times Media, the publication I worked for, closed down, but I think my contract was going to end towards December 2015. So they rotated me towards the radio sales department rather. And I worked there as a radio sales coordinator. And as I was working there, we were essentially working with the sales team, and the sales team really were like a great bunch. Like they were wonderful ladies. And Mervyn, who was essentially the manager, who was also very nurturing of my professional career. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, I think I like sales. I think I like what you guys do because you get to go out and you're having conversations with people, and that's something I'd want to do. And he said, absolutely, if that's something you want to do, I'll probably take you with me when I do go visit some agencies or clients. And when I got that experience as well, I was like, okay, I think sales is something that's really interesting, that's fun. I'm essentially sharing all of this to let you know why I decided to go study towards certificate in marketing. I did think it was important for me to understand marketing and how we market brands and how we position them and how we go into targeting and all of that. After I concluded my contract at Times Media and I had received my certificate in marketing with distinction, I did start thinking that it was important for me to really focus on my academics and really pursue that degree that I wanted. And again, I applied this time though to study towards a degree in marketing and psychology. And the reason I chose those two was because I really wanted to understand human nature so I could be a better marketeer. So it could inform my strategy, it could inform how I design and build my plans, because I would have insights into what do humans desire, what are humans fears, what makes someone do a certain behavior that we would want them to do. And I applied to Wits Plus again, and I got in and I started my degree. It went well. I still knew, and I think from my diploma, I knew that anything and everything that I was going to do academically, I wanted to now graduate with a distinction. I wanted to excel academically because now it was something that I was really passionate about. It wasn't like when I was in high school where, you're forced to do Afrikaans, you're forced to do Stompi, you're forced to do electrical technology, or rather I felt that I was forced when I couldn't now go to a normal high school. So I had to do my physics, I had to do, life science, I had to do electrical technology, things that I wasn't necessarily passionate about. But after matric, anything and everything that I did was because I was passionate about. And if this is something that I'm passionate about and I'm putting my money towards, I am going to make sure that I excel at it. So I did my qualification, started my first year, did absolutely well. I'll probably also insert snippets of my degree as well as my academic transcript, but I did exceptionally well in my first year. Again, in my second year, did exceptionally well because I still had that desire for English Lit and linguistics. In my first year, I did a module in English literature, the best thing ever. In second year, I wanted to do it part-time, but I couldn't because it conflicted with one of the other modules that I was doing. I then did it, full-time, but at that time I had gotten a job as a account sales executive, so selling digital platforms essentially. So I really don't have time to go attend class full time. So then I dropped that class. I worked as an account sales executive at this organization. It was fun when I had to actually go and meet clients and really tell them about what we did and how we really want to come on board and really work with them. But when they say people leave organizations because of people that are there and not necessarily because of the job, that was precisely me. The manager, amazing, her welcoming was great, but I really felt like she was on my neck. But I get it also, it's sales, right? So we have targets that we need to meet. And I remember the one time I didn't meet target. Not that I ever met any target because I wasn't there that long. I was there less than a year, and I wasn't bringing in those numbers. And they were gonna introduce a system where if you didn't meet your monthly target, you would get like a written warning. So for me, I already felt like there was a countdown for them to actually get me out of there or get the people in sales who weren't performing out of there. So then I decided at that time, I think I'm gonna leave. I think this is not for me. I don't want to be this stressed in my life. I'm still doing my degree. I think at that time I was either in my second year or I think it was my second year. So I figured I'm not going to be able to do this. I really want to make sure that academically I'm thriving. At that time, I had identified that when you excel academically, there are some opportunities that come your way or that are more visible to you that you wouldn't have necessarily known about. And one such opportunity was a program called the Ship for World Youth Leaders. The Ship for World Youth is a leadership and cultural program that is organized and managed by the government of Japan. And it's really there to bring youth from different countries to come together with the youth of Japan and to really think through societal issues and how we can make an impact in the world. So I then decided I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to apply for this opportunity. And if I get it, yay, because that means I get to travel to Japan. So amazing again, where I don't have to pay for it. But because of this one opportunity, I can do. And I remember we had to actually go for a couple of interviews at the Japanese embassy in Pretoria. So went for a couple of interviews, felt that I did my best, waited a couple of weeks to get feedback, got that confirmation. Congratulations, you will be joining the 30th installment of the program. So I was part of the SWI 30 batch of the program. And I remember it was going to be between February and March the next year, which was going to be my final year. So I remember I sent out an email to my lecturers and I did inform them, hey, I'm going to be traveling to Japan because of this program. I'm going to miss lectures, but I will catch up. By the time I come back, I will make sure that I am online with what the content is essentially. I then participated in the Ship for World Youth Program, the 30th installment. I flew to Japan. There was actually 10 of us from South Africa. We traveled to Japan. When we arrived in Japan, we met all the other participants from the different countries. Being in Japan and getting to really mingle with different youths from different countries, different walks of lives, different interests, different passions. The one thing that really stuck with me was how everybody was so passionate about sustainable development goals. What can they do in their own communities, in their own societies to give back? And that is something that I really wanted to be a part of. So while we were in Japan, for a couple of weeks. We then traveled to India, but we actually stopped in Singapore for a day. We then went to India, then went to Sri Lanka. then of course we were on a boat, right? We were on a ship essentially. That's why it's called Ship for World Youth. We then got back on the ship. On our way back to Japan, we did stop in Singapore again, and then went back to Japan and flew back to South Africa. And of course, and then I had to come back, continue with my studies. But I think the one thing that stuck with me was I really also want to be a youth that gives back to my community and my society. And I think at that time, I also had to realize that I'm not going to volunteer. I need to make money. At that time, also, my mom wasn't working. So, I needed money. I needed money to take care of myself, but also to take care of her and support her as much as I could. So I knew that I wanted to work, make a living, but I wanted my work to be really linked with giving back to society. And the first thing I thought of was the public service. I mean, people working in public service are there to help the larger community, the small communities where they may be placed, but also society at large. So then I decided I really want to go into the public sector, researched a couple of institutions that I could really be passionate about, or things that aligned with my interests. I think I also knew at that time that I didn't want to do anything for the sake of doing something. Anything and everything that I was going to do after matric had to be something that I'm either interested in, is going to help me grow, I'm really passionate about, or it's a skill that I want to learn. And one such organization is the Film and Publication Board, which is a state regulatory institution. And I really liked what it stood for because, one, I lived at the cinema. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I used to go to the cinema on Tuesdays because it was half price. Thursdays because it was double point. New movies came out on Friday, so I'd either go to the cinema on Friday or the Saturday. So I lived for the cinema, and I had seen that triangle with FPB, and I'd seen the age restrictions, whether it's 13 PG or 16, and I wanted to know what that institution does, and I did my research. The Film and Publication Board is essentially there to make sure that they are classifying and regulating content so that kids do not get exposed to premature experiences. And I think when I understood what the business did, I was like, okay, I really want to work for these people. Lucky enough also, and I don't think it's luck, right? I think God really does work in our lives. If sometimes we may not be paying attention, but as you sit back and you think about it, it's only God that makes things happen, and it's God who knows our paths, and it's God who will direct us. And the one time I was looking for opportunities, I would go on the Film and Publication Board site, and I saw that they were looking for interns. During that year, the Film and Publication Board was looking to take in about 10 interns to join the organization within the different departments. And the department that I applied for and the one that I wanted was within classification, because I felt that was the heart of what the organization does. And if we are doing this work to really make sure that we are properly and adequately classifying content so that kids don't get exposed to some experiences that their minds cannot comprehend, where it's going to do them harm emotionally, psychologically. I wanted to know how all of that is done. I then applied. I didn't hear back for a number of months, and because it's a public institution, so I can understand the processes that they had to follow. But in the meantime, also there were some other jobs that I applied for. Actually got a job, a permanent job at a research agency as a sales executive. I started working there, and I remember my mom was super happy, super excited, and she said, yay, like you finally now have a job that you're really passionate about. And it seemed that the manager was also a great gentleman. I was there a month, and then I heard feedback from the Film and Publication Board, and they said, congratulations, you got the job. And I was like, yay. And then I was like, yay, thank you, super excited. Just understand when it comes to remuneration, how much will I be earning? And I remember they said it was going to be about 6,000 Rand. And I had to sit down and think hard about my next steps, because you can imagine at that time, I'm now fully supporting my mom and I. I've got a car that I need to pay for because I'm in sales, so you're driving around a lot. And 6,000 Rand is really not gonna cut it. I mean, I'm helping my mom pay off her bond, and 6,000 Rand was really not gonna cut it. And at this job where I think I was earning about 16,000 Rand. So it was like 10,000 Rand more. And I remember sending an email to the HR lady at FPB and I said, hey, could you add a little bit more money? Maybe just add like 4,000 Rand more, 5,000 Rand more, maybe get me to like a 10 and 11. I know, you're probably sitting there thinking, Nelly, that's not gonna happen. But like I said, I was raised with a mom who said, you need to ask for things and hear if there's any feedback, if it's a yay or a nay. I remember she got back to me and she said, absolutely not, it's not going to happen. Their stipend is flat rates and it's across all the interns. So please let me know if you want to take this opportunity or not. I remember I went to my mom and I said, I think I want to risk it, right? I think I'm in my 20s and I think this is a time when I can take such risks. Having that conversation with my mom, and I thought, I think this is a risk we should take, you know. I'm at a point in my life where I can afford to take such risks, right? And should they not work out, it's not going to be a devastating blow in my life. I'm young enough where I can learn from the mistakes and I can actually grow from it and try something else differently. And I think what I'm also trying to communicate here is there are some risks that you may have to take, legal risks, of course. But life will sometimes also want you to take that leap of faith. God will want you to trust Him, to look to Him for protection, for guidance, and for provision. God will want you to look to Him. I mean, God always wants us to look to Him, but there are also certain situations where God really wants you to rely on Him because He knows where your life is going. So we made that decision. I said, yes, I am coming to join the Film and Publication Board as a classification intern. And I had to go to my current boss. I mean, I'd been there for about 2 months now. And I was like, I need to leave. There was a different organization that I had applied for. And they just recently got back to me and they would like me to join the team. I then went to join the Film and Publication Board. And it was, I think, all the experiences I've had, and maybe you probably hear in this video, it's like, oh, it's been great. But I think it's great because there's always a lesson that I take from it. There's always people that I meet that I wouldn't have met. I've made beautiful friendships at FPB as well. Palesa, Lerato are one of my closest friends till this day. And I wouldn't have met them had I not gone and joined the Film and Publication Board. But I think another important thing is I really stand by what the institution and the organization works for. It's really there to protect children from premature exposure to content that will do them harm. And I had a wonderful time learning about what goes into classification. When you are seeing that 13 LV at a cinema, or on a DVD that you are buying, right? What does that really mean? What are the classifiable elements? What goes into making the decision? Is it just one person sitting there that's then, classifying it? Or are there a number of people that are sitting there and having these discussions? And it was so great to see, to read the report, right? To have the quality assurer also assess and have conversations with the classifiers. What informed their decisions? Yes, they've got the guidelines that they followed. What were the things that they identified and why did they make that final decision? And I had a wonderful time at the Film and Publication Board, and I was looking to stay there for like a number of years. But I remember there was a decision made by the minister at the time, and I think for communications, it was Stella at the time. And she said all the government institutions within the Department of Communications, you guys cannot hire any people because we just want to restructure in a certain way. So after the year, my internship came to an end and I was unemployed again. And I think the first 6 months of my internship financially also wasn't so much of a challenge because there were some jobs that I had landed in modeling. So throughout these years, like I said, I was still modeling till today. There were still some monies that were coming in, but the last 6 months of my internship at FPP were the most hardest financially, emotionally, psychologically on me, because I could not afford to even go to the office. I remember the one time I drove to the office on zero. And it's not like I drove because, I left home and it was like maybe 1 kilometer. No, no, no. I had been driving on that zero for like a couple of days, right? And I remember going into the office and I said to one of my friends at the organization, I went to her and I said, Wendy, I do not have money for transport. I do not have money for petrol. I don't know how I'm going to get home. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to come to the office tomorrow to work. And she then put me in touch with one of the other colleagues we were working for, and Neli helped me out. So Neli, if you ever get to watch this video, I am so thankful for what you did for me that day, loaning me that money so I could get petrol. But anyway, worked at the Film and Publication Board. My qualification came to an end, and then boom, unemployed again. And now I'm really at a 0.00 income on a monthly basis. Still doing pretty well academically, having a great time, but also now having to think through, what am I going to do? How am I going to get a job? Where am I going to get a job? How am I going to make money? Fast forward a couple of months, I come across another internship at the company that I currently work at now. So I've been there since like November 2019. And I remember, it was going to be like a 9-week internship. And then after that 9 weeks, you could actually come and join the organization through the graduate program. And the way they run their graduate program is that, one, it's for 18 months, but also when you are coming in through the graduate program, you are essentially a permanent staff there. It's just that they want to train you within that 18 months. So the 9 weeks is essentially trying to suss you out to see if you can handle what work you will need to be doing and if you really are a cultural fit with the organization. I then applied for this internship. I went for the interview, managed to get the 9-week internship, was there for 9 weeks within the communication space, because remember, my initial qualification, the diploma, was in journalism, even though I was still in my 3rd year of my degree in psychology and marketing. So I also did ask that, can I join the communications team, because it was something I was passionate about and interested in. I completed the 9 weeks internship and I received my results for my degree, and I was going to graduate with distinction. It's important that I add here as well that the first 2 years of my degree were funded by WITS, and maybe in another video I'll speak about how they were able to fund me as a part-timer. But the 3rd year, they were not going to fund me, so I had to make a plan. And I remember going, okay, I know the NYDA, National Youth Development Agency, does support students who are studying with paying off their fees. So I, sent an application, went to the office with my mom. So my mom is also like my handbag most of the time. We went to the head offices around Woodmead. Went there, told them I need to apply, had my academic records. And I think for me also, I felt confident going to these institutions and asking for money for them to pay for my fees rather, because I had the marks to back it up. I applied for one of the funds that they have. They got back to me and they said, yes, we are going to fund you. But I think they were only going to fund me for about 50% of that. So I had to raise another 50%. I've lived in the city of Ekurhuleni all my life. Born, bred, raised in the city of Ekurhuleni. And for me, I was like, my city needs to come through. So again, with my mom, we drove to Germiston. And I went there and, I spoke to it was actually the receptionist who I asked if I could meet the mayor. They were like, absolutely not. Who are you? But then I got to meet with the PA of the mayor. At that time, it was Umzwandile who was the mayor. And I met with her and I told her, this is my situation. I'm doing my final year. I've just completed my final year. I have my results. I'm graduating with distinction. These are my outstanding fees. I did apply for funding with the NYDA. They will be funding me for 50%, but I need another 50%. Will you guys help me? And I remember she said, okay, I'll chat to the mayor and see if there are any funds within his budget that supports kids who need that. And went home and asked God, God, may that be the case. And then they got back to me and they said, yes, we are going to be funding the other 50%. And I was so elated. I was so thankful. I felt so grateful that I didn't have to stress anymore about where was I going to find that other 50%. So to the NYDA as well as the city of Ekurhuleni, thank you so much for what you have done for me. I am here today because you also played a pivotal role in my life. And then, after the 9 weeks internship, the organization I worked for, they had a conversation with me and said, would you be interested in coming to join the organization through the graduate program? And I remember my mom and I, if we didn't cry, we probably jumped and just celebrated, because I think finally we felt that we're okay. Like, Neli, we're gonna be okay now. This is a global company that you're working for. You are going to be okay. It's a permanent job. You have your degree. You are going to be all right. And Neli in 2011, after matriculating in 2010, who had no idea what was going to become of her life. I feel like I'm getting emotional, but I don't want to cry because I got makeup on. But yeah, Neli, who had no idea what she was going to be or how her life was going to turn around, things were coming together. It was 2020, the beginning of 2020. I was going to start the graduate program in February, and things had finally come together. I mean, I've grown within the organization from starting off as a graduate, or rather as an intern for that 9 weeks, coming to join as a graduate, which is essentially like an associate analyst. I then became a specialist in marketing, and currently I work as a senior specialist within the marketing function. And none of this would have happened had God not been the one who directed my footsteps. Had I not, listened to him and take the brave steps that needed to be taken for risking where I had to risk. And I am so thankful for what God has done in my life. And I want to reassure you today that God is with you. You may think you are alone currently, and how are you going to make it happen? Although there might be uncertainty and your future might look unclear, but trust me and believe me, things will come together. God will provide for you accordingly. Just keep in mind the experiences you want to have. Be willing to take the risks and also take action in your life, and things will absolutely come together. Do the research, expose yourself, have conversation, read books, meet friends, meet people, but just don't sit at home and feel that there's nothing you can do, there's nothing that you will become. This is the end for you and you don't know what to do with your life. There will be hurdles, right? And sometimes you will have to take 5 steps back to ultimately take like 10 forward. But be willing to learn, be willing to grow, be willing to do what needs to be done to build the life that you want to build. Thank you so much for watching my video and hearing my story. It has been 14 years since I matriculated, and it has been a whirlwind. It has been amazing. It has been full of ups, but it's also been full of down. And one thing that my mom likes saying, that I was actually sharing with some interns that I'm training in my department, is that my mom has always said, life is like a wheel, and the wheel is continuously rotating. At one point in your life, you will be at the top, but you'll also move to the side. At one point in your life, you will be at the bottom, and then you'll be on the side again. But you can go back to the top because the wheel keeps on turning. So please subscribe to the channel and let me know how your experience was after matric, if you have matriculated, and what words of wisdom you can share with our recently graduated matriculants as they set forth into their adulthood. And if you are currently feeling like you don't know how you are going to make it in your life, please send me a message. Either here on YouTube in the comment section or on my Instagram. I would like to pray for you. And if there's any way that I can help and support you, I would really like to do that. Until next time, have a blessed day.